Hey, it's your girl Nancy Red, and this is season 3 of Mompreneurs, where each week we celebrate beautiful Black entrepreneurs who are simultaneously killing it as business moguls and awesome moms. We listen to their life stories and inspiring advice. Today's guest, I'm so grateful that she has the time to join me here. She is the beautiful and brilliant creative mastermind, Allison McGevna, whose journey from writer to model to media mompreneur is just inspiring for all of us. She's a screenwriter whose work is getting praised by Hollywood. She's a multimedia storyteller who's worked with most of the major brands in media. And if that's not enough, she's also a senior vice president who's led iOne Digital through its most historically profitable years. And this is only the start. Allison, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I feel like I need you as my hype woman at everything I go to.
Well, you're everyone else's hype woman. That's the irony, right? Because one of the great things about your entrepreneurship is you bring people along for the ride. You are very much in the spirit of being a supporter of other individuals and not just the one lone person waving the flag at the top, wouldn't you say?
I appreciate that. And I would say that, yes, that's definitely what I strive to be in every opportunity I get.
Yes. Well, before we start to talk about the opportunities that you get and that you kill, let's talk about who actually makes you a mompreneur. Tell us about your household. Who makes you a mom? Who makes you a wife? Who makes you a pet
Yeah.
parent?
Yes. So I am, gosh, it's like order of priority. First and foremost, of course, mommy, right? I have a 5-year-old son, Declan, and a 18-month-old daughter, Penelope, which I cannot even believe. I feel like she's still a newborn, but she is 18 months. So a toddler and a kindergartner. I have a very noisy schnauzer who is hopefully in her quiet space. We did some affirmations with her this morning that, like, I will not bark at the leaves that fly by and everything, because she is disruptive. And then of course it all started with being wife to my wonderful husband Dave. And yeah, that is, they keep me busy, and they are the real folks that I answer to.
They are the folks you're interested in. They're the folks you do it for.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Everything I do for sure is about, like, how can I create a legacy for my children, and that they have something to start with, and that they are, you got to make sure that not only it's diapers, but these kids live off of berries, which are really expensive. And, they have their particular kind of cheese that they must eat. So it's like, I gotta make sure they have what they need.
And you are doing a great job of that. When we talk about your creative endeavors, what do you think came first, being a mom or being a creative entrepreneur?
Oh, absolutely, being a creative. I think I've been a creative since I was a little girl. So I think that I became a mom later in life. So I definitely have always been driven by that creativity, which I definitely feel like I bring into parenthood. But yeah, creative entrepreneur came first.
So all your kids know is a mama with a bunch of hustles.
Pre- Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. They definitely know when, like, mommy working and mommy needing a minute, and and daddy working, like, they'll always know that as part of their reality.
I love it. Okay, so talk to us about the what I always call the hustle hierarchies. You have so many avenues, so many sides of your crown. What makes up the bulk of your endeavors?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely my job as SVP of Content at iOne Digital is for sure, professionally speaking, the bulk of what I do. I have the biggest team in the company. I run all of content, so that's all of editorial, social, and video. And so it's a big department. We have multiple brands, multiple platforms. So that takes up quite a bit of my time and my creative vision, and certainly very fulfilling in the process. And then I am a writer, which writing is like, kind of an all day thing because you might wake up and kind of like scribble something down, or you might have had like an idea that came to you in the shower that you're like, oh my God, I got to write that down. And then just trying to kind of find time to, make sure you're up to date with that, and that you have to give yourself that time to make sure you're writing. But, people always say too that writing is like just living. You're observing people, you're reading something, you're listening to a song, you go outside for a walk and you see something and a line will come to you. So that takes up a lot of my time. And then um, I would say, fashion, the fashion elements of what I do, and that is also definitely something that's always on my mind. I genuinely love fashion and beauty, and so keeping up to date with that. And above all of those things, for sure, is being mom. It's like you're driving kids to school, and you're taking somebody to the doctor, and you're figuring out what they're going to have for lunch and for dinner, and and I try to be, it's really important to me to be a very hands-on mom. So I like to cook my children their meals. When I can, of course, I like to be really involved in what they're doing. So I think like mom would probably be number one. I said, my professional work, but mom is definitely number one. And then all the other things kind of fall into place after that.
But they're all also intertwined, right? It is the
Yeah.
fact that you are a seasoned writer, you have done so many things, that you are creative, that you are a mom, that has helped you really in your executive positions really shine, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think for a lot of my life, I've always been somebody who had so many different interests. And, sometimes I feel like I've lived a lot of professional lives because I've done lots of different things and worked in different capacities. But I think there's always been this common through line of just creativity that's centered around, you know, identity, of like my identity that I bring to it, whether it's like my cultural background, my love of fashion, my absolute foundational love of and for Black women, and just like that sisterhood and that universe. And so there is absolutely a through line, though on paper, people are like, wow, you kind of, done a bunch of different things. But yeah, I do think there's a through line in my work for sure.
And that's what makes everything so unique and special, that causes them to get eyeballs. For example, even as a media mogul, as the SVP here at iOne Digital, you're what people refer to as a rebuild queen. You're like a literal transformer. Talk to us about, what does that mean? Like, how do you go into a company and really help them not only survive? This is not the first company you've done this with, too. You help companies with your creativity, not just survive, but thrive. Like,
Yeah.
you've done an amazing job here. Talk to us about what is your process when you come in, you get creative, and you roll up your sleeves. How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. First of all, with respect to iOne, I'm very proud of what we have built and what we have accomplished, and we built definitely on an amazing foundation. But when I started in 2020, the former SVP of Content was ready to step down, kind of transition into other things that she was doing in her life, and it was just a time of transition for the company and the world, right? It's the fall of 2020. We're coming off of or we're really not coming off, we're in the throes of COVID. We're in the throes of the revenue and business and financial implications that had for companies. And the team was it was definitely a time of transition for the company. And so when I came in, one of the things that I really was tasked with was looking at the sort of universe of iOne content and figuring out how we could build that synergy. We were going to market as a collective, but on the inside, it didn't always work like that, right? It's different sites, different teams. And so people would focus head down on the site that they were working on, the platform they were working on. And for me, I really had to visualize, how do we make this truly one content team? So when I came on, I was over editorial, and then eventually I took on video and social as well. And so it's really become this big universe where those used to be separate teams. And now it really makes sense that we're all one team. So I think, that was something that I've been super proud of, that we were able to work together and build that happiness and joy and synergy and community among the teams. And that's been super successful for us, right? We've had an incredible 4 years. We've broken our revenue records every single year for the last 4 years, which is amazing and very difficult to accomplish in digital media in general, but certainly in digital media over the last couple of years. So super proud of that. And yeah, prior to that, I had done the same thing at Essence. I came at a time when, the print and digital teams had sort of transitioned into one team, but we were still doing the I don't want to call it antiquated, but the old school print process of I would get pages on my desk and have to sign off on them and give my notes, physical paper notes, and it would get passed around to everyone's desk. And it just really didn't make sense for the workflow. And it was the team, a lot of the same team was working on digital and print. So we really digitized the process. And that was a big thing that I came in and did. And, thank God, because then then COVID hit and we had to work remote, because I was, still in the beginning of 2020 was still at Essence. So, I think I've always sort of gone in with a vision of well, how do we work together more as a family? I have that family mindset. And then I think it's also just I really try to step back and learn my people and the people on my team. And are they in the right position? Are they happy doing what they are doing? Do they want to work on the same team, but in a different capacity, right? Because people have multiple interests. We are large and we contain multitudes. So I think for me, I've definitely work to build teams that way. And, along the way, even at Fox, when I was there, we really built that entertainment vertical that didn't exist at foxnews.com. This was many, many years ago. But, I think I've really just built a reputation over the years as just someone who can kind of come in and create some cohesion, be a listening ear for people when they've had their frustrations, and look at what are the things that we can address. And it's not a change that happens overnight, but it's something I'm really proud of, that, and thank you for saying that, I'm recognized for having that vision to help kind of turn teams around.
Well, and also for being a good role model for avoiding burnout, right? Because when we talk about being a
Yes.
mompreneur, burnout is on the tip of our tongue, a lot of it, because it's really
Lord.
hard to juggle
Yeah.
often a full-time job, a business, a family, and also still feel like you are a whole human yourself.
Yeah.
When you look at the parts of yourself, how do you make time? Because not only are you this very, very accomplished executive, but you're also a screenwriter, and you also have a novel that is very close to being out in the world. We're claiming it. How do
Yeah.
you balance all of these things in a way that creates such effective results?
Yeah, I mean, I think every mom and every person feels like they're not doing as good of a job as they could at balancing. So I just appreciate that. I think, in all honesty, one, I live I schedule time for everything, right? Everything. I schedule time to make sure that I am even just taking a 10-minute walk. One thing I've implemented with my direct reports is at least one of our one-on-ones or our meetings have to be walking meetings, so that I can get my steps in and things like that. And then I schedule time to write, and I do a schedule that I think sometimes people are intimidated by a schedule, but I thrive in being able to know okay, this is what I have to kind of focus on. So I think that you have to schedule and have those boundaries. I also do, I'm a big proponent, I tell my team this all the time, to block off time to work in your workday. I think sometimes we talk a lot about working, and we have lots of meetings and we have lots of ideation time, but we don't leave any time to actually work. So I'm always telling people block off time to work, block off time to just if you need to think and you need to write, and especially as a creative, I think you need to do that. And then, yeah, I mean, I think it's, in your youth, or in your, at least for me, when I was in my 20s and I was first kind of starting out, I would just wanted to prove myself so much. I wanted to, and I think I thought proving myself meant I would be the last to leave and first to arrive. And I would be the person who'd like, I'd work a full day and then I'd go do like red carpet producing at night. And then I would stay up late in the cutting room and like, because there was this narrative that like you had to just do so much work and be, twice as good for half as much. And like now that I'm older, and as the years have gone on, I've really seen that I'm only doing myself a disservice to burn myself out. Like I firmly believe in working hard and making time to have that side hustle, but I also believe that you cannot do things at the expense of yourself because your body will tell you. And maybe not in your 20s, maybe not even in your 30s. For some people, probably not even in their 40s, but eventually your body you're gonna hit that wall and you're gonna hit it hard. And you're no good to anybody if you're burned out. And also, I follow folks who are very like, though, I work in corporate America and I am very much a part of this American society. I'm very like anti-capitalist machine. And so like I follow a lot of like the NAP ministry, Dr. Trisha
Yes.
Hersey, like for me that
Love her.
yes, like that mindset is also so new and so fresh to me. And also like I spend time with the Gen Z kids and they will be like, no, we need some, you need to take a break. And they have really like enlightened me too about boundaries and acceptance and things like that. So I'm always learning from people too, because I will, as a type A, you default to just, again, those toxic habits of just, I'm going to work so hard and I'm going to work every hour of the day. And it's like, no, I'm going to schedule some time for me to just like read a book
Do
or take a
deep
walk.
work. Like what you've done is you
Yeah.
schedule time, and I think especially for moms, scheduling time is so crucial because you work smart and not hard. You were able to bring iOne to its most profitable time ever, all while finishing an award receiving screenplay, all while working on a novel. Talk to us about the things you do that you schedule when you're not working. You schedule plenty of time to run a very successful mega company. And then you also schedule plenty of time to work on your passion business.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so my husband and I have a really effective, wonderful system because my husband is also a creative. So he has his like day job that, he does. And then he's also an artist. And so we have creative nights where, for a couple of like, right now it works out for us that we have two, creative nights each a week. And what that means is you have a block of time, obviously, that's in between like dinner and bedtime. So it's not like you have the whole night. But what we do is that person, whose ever creative night it is, they have the ability to either like sit down and write or work or read. Or, my husband's a musician, so he's always up in his recording studio and kind of playing around with things like that. Or you can also use your creative night to just like, sometimes I like to go to Home Goods and smell candles and like, or go to like, Macy's and like sniff the perfumes and test out the hand lotions and things like that. And that's also part of my creative process because it's just, it's time to be ourselves. And then whoever is kind of like off or on duty that night ends up being like, you cook dinner and you are kind of being with the kids in those in the witching hour times of like that they need all the attention and stuff like that. And that's been a very effective process for us. So we'll do like one parent is Monday Tuesday, the other is Wednesday Thursday, and then Friday is like family night. So that's been a really effective thing that I recommend to friends. Again, it doesn't work for everybody. Maybe you can't do 2 nights, but having those couple of hours to yourself and respecting the other's time and knowing that, again, it's on the schedule on the fridge. If you look to the left, you can't see, but you guys, it's on the schedule. And it's like Allie creative night, Dave creative night. And we adhere to it. And it's been a really effective process for us. So schedule creative time, y'all, please.
I love this. I think this is actually brilliant and it makes so much sense. Everybody gets 2 nights, then we come together
Yeah.
for the weekend and Friday. That's good. We're
Yeah.
good. That's
Yeah.
all you need. And then that way it makes sense. When you say it out loud, it makes sense. Of course, when you're scheduling it, you might feel a little guilty. But when you look at
Yeah.
it, that's fair. That's literally equality at its
Yeah.
best. Talk to us about some of the things that you've been working on during your creative nights.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh. So right now, my sort of latest project that you mentioned that's been, getting a little bit of a buzz is my screenplay. It's called Circle the Flame. It's a really amazing story, coming of age story, very much grounded in Caribbean folklore. My mother's from Grenada. My father is Irish Catholic. And so it's very like, I always say my whole life was grounded in like ghosts, grudges, and glamour. Like my grandmothers were these super glamorous women. Anyone who knows Irish or West Indian people know that grudges kind of hang on. And then, it was very like I grew up in a very spiritual family, and Caribbean folklore was a huge part of it. And of course, Catholicism is just grounded in, ghosts and saints and all those, that good stuff. So, for me, that the project is really grounded in that. It's a really fun, glamorous, like adventure project. And it's been getting some great buzz. And it is also adapted from my novel, which, just really proud of that project. And, hopefully we'll be getting some, on screens and on bookshelves near folks soon, getting, again, a lot of buzz. I'm really, really excited about it and proud of it. And again, it's just a very me project, to really ground in things that I feel like only I could tell the story that way. So, again, I also recommend that to people with like creativity, just kind of blocking out the noise and really focusing on like, what's the story you could tell that's really you. And that once I got that advice, that was a really successful and motivating advice for me.
Because you don't need to reinvent the wheel. And I can tell you right now that a Caribbean ghost and a story that is just full of all kinds of intrigue is very, very needed and very, very new. It's interesting you say, like, it's very me. That's what you said. It's very you. And one of the
Yeah.
things about motherhood is it can take the you out of the equation. What is your
Yes.
advice to someone who wants to do something creative, who wants to do something represent of themselves, but they've kind of lost their way? They've kind of gotten all caught up in diapers and kids and responsibilities and their day jobs, and they just don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, honestly, I've been there, and in so many ways, like my daughter, as I said, is 18 months, and I'm only starting to feel like myself again. So I think that, just first of all, having some time, even if you can only get 15 minutes in your day, whether maybe it's your lunch break at work, or maybe it's, in the evening, or the time that you can, if you don't have, a partner or family member who can help you with watching the kids, that maybe it's like a friend or a neighbor, whatever it is, or daycare, that you just make some time for yourself to do something that you genuinely love. Whether, again, sometimes that's smelling candles at Home Goods, and sometimes that's walking through Walgreens to kind of like look at the press on nail selection and just be like, oh, let me think about that. Other times it's you're literally reading new novels, or you're keeping yourself up to date on what's happening, or you're studying whatever it is. For people it looks different, but I think about the things that you loved to do before you became a mom, or the things that made you happy, and they could be small, they could be big, but spend some time doing that, and I think the creativity will follow. I think the more you get back to the things that make you you, and the things that make you interested in being you, the easier it is to access that voice, because you're giving it permission. Like, don't try to force it if it's not ready. That's why I always say so much of writing and creativity is really just existing, and just like, having that time to yourself. um the biggest thing for moms is like, we just have to stop, like, we are so much to everybody, and that's great, and that's a part of it, but we also have to remember that we have to give some time to also be ourselves, because otherwise you will lose yourself. And then, parenthood is it's really important to have yourself and not get lost, so that your kids know who you are, and your partner or your friends, like, or your sisters or your mom, that you don't completely lose who you are in the process. Because, man, it's so easy. Oh, it's
It's so
so
easy. And
easy.
in particular, when you're balancing your creative entrepreneurship with your C suite, right?
Yeah.
You are very unique and special and a really good role model for women, for moms, for people who are juggling very impressive resume titles and
Yeah.
their humanity. Which, for the longest time, like in our parents' generation, we could not be having this conversation. You were supposed to be all company all the time. But
Yeah.
how has being able to be creative in a completely separate space, because what you're doing is unscripted and what you do for your creative mompreneurship is scripted, right? How
Yeah.
has that not just uh, made you happy, but impacted the bottom line of what you do at iOne?
Oh, I mean, I think, first of all, having something that brings me joy and that allows that creative expression, which is definitely my writing, but even just hobbies, like I love to garden and do those kinds of things. Having things that bring me joy make me a whole person, and that whole person is then able to show up. And especially when you're in a role like mine where you really do have to make a lot of decisions, you have a lot of people's ultimately decisions that you make impact people's jobs and their livelihood. So like there, you really do have to be in a place where you're not driven by fear or by frazzle or anything like that. Like you have to be grounded. So I think it's really important to make that time for yourself so that you can show up that way. And it also just like, any creative, whatever creative way, everybody's creative, but really, if you're not creating and you're a creative, it's like just buried inside you. And if you don't get it out in whatever means that you use to get it out, I believe it can make you sick. That's why you have to use your creativity to get it out into the world. And if you're sick, you can't do any good work. And if you're, tired and you're like bitter, because a lot of times you might be bitter in your day job, if you will, because you don't, again, you're getting lost and you're losing yourself. But if you have that thing that is yours, then you can show up as your whole self to work. And you can also know that, like, you are not your job. You are not your projects. You are not your children. You are all of those things, and they're all parts of you. But like, no, the success of one, or, like, aside from keeping our children alive and healthy and protected, like the success of one is not, canceling out the other. It's only enhancing the other, if that makes sense.
It does, and it makes sense, especially when someone like you says it, right? Which is why it's good that your employees, your colleagues, they see you living your whole life, your whole fashionable life, your whole creative, writing life, and how it comes into the original products that you create. Like, for example, a lot of your influence was behind the concept you created, Listen to Black Women, which is one of our most successful shows.
Yeah. It's so funny. Listen to Black Women really came out of frustrations that at the time, I think, like listening to my team, that they were feeling, and they were feeling like, and this is a perfect example of, yes, creativity being driven by like real life experience of like, I'm not being heard. And of course we know that Black women are, always on the the right side of history as the collective. I feel like we, so I really think that for me it was also just the fact that we could all benefit from listening to Black women, and we should. But it was also just like a born out of, kind of, there's a frustration and people are not feeling heard. Like, how do we turn that into a creative project? So, I am so proud. This was years ago, in my first iteration at iOne, when I was over the women's brands, and we created the show and it was great. And then when I came back, I knew that it was so foundational for us to reimagine it. And now it's become this huge thing where we have so many voices and we just talk about, our perspectives on the world and what's happening in the world. And, whether it's, motherhood to relationships to money to all those kinds of things. I think, for me, just again, bringing that conversations that I'm having with my friends and with my colleagues and my neighbors, and thinking about how we can turn that into a creative endeavor. So yeah, I mean, I love what it's become. I'm super proud of Listen to Black Women, and that it's expanded. Now we have Listen to Black Men. We're in development for some other like Listen to Black franchise, if you will, and just super proud of the voices that we get to bring to light in that work.
And it's so important to be thinking about the fact that you're creating lives, you're creating spaces, you're creating safety, and you're mentoring. I think that's one of the great things is it's not just the people in front of the camera. You are employing a lot of people behind the camera. You are employing publicists. There's like a whole, you are in charge of just really influencing. You're not an you used to be an influencer on the gram, and now you're an
Yeah.
influencer in the C-suite. It's
Yeah.
some of the same, it's some of the same forward thinking mentalities though, right? Just putting yourself out there as a role
Yeah.
model, and watching how people improve.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think any, like, we, it's not even that I'm thinking of myself as the role model, but it's definitely, and of course, it's not just me, who's kind of working on the employee, um, and employing all those folks. It's a whole collective team. But I do think that it's not that I'm thinking like I need to be a role model. It's just that I'm trying to live as authentically and honestly and do no harm, like coming in with that mentality. Of course, you no matter how hard you try, you end up being the villain in somebody's story. But I think for sure leadership is really just about like putting yourself in a position where your folks can respect you, and that you tried to kind of bring as much integrity and creativity and work into it as possible. And I strive to do that every day. Of course, I don't always hit the mark, but I definitely strive to do that in my leadership.
And you're honest about when things don't always work out well, because like you said, you're always going to be the villain in someone's story. Nothing is perfect. Nobody, I always tell my kids, nobody's perfect. Everybody's doing their best. So what
Yeah.
are some of the things when you're helping people, because like one of my favorite aspects of mentorship is keeping people from falling into the traps that I have fallen in, because I have fallen in
Oh,
traps and made
yes.
so many mistakes, and avoiding them can streamline processes so much. So what's a big fail that you learned from that you try to warn people, don't do like I did?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, really the biggest thing and the biggest way to, as best you can, avoid failure, and we're all going to have our failure moments, but really is to be nice to people and stop over promising when it's going to lead to under delivering. I think, people need to really make sure that you're honest, and you can certainly say something like, I'm super proud of what the experience that I have in it, but I'm looking forward to learning together and growing and developing more. I think we want to stop acting like we know things more than we do. It's okay to be new at something. It's okay to say to someone that you're learning and that you're working through, and again, setting those boundaries. And I think that if you kind of go into it with that approach, that's really going to save you from as many failures as possible. Again, there's only so much control that you can have, but I think it's important to just treat people well. And the worst kind of failure is when just you know you overreacted or you treated somebody badly, and it happens to the best of us. But like, try really hard to have compassion for people and be able to step outside yourself and understand that, as you said earlier, like, everybody's going through something, and sometimes you really do need to just give somebody some grace. And that doesn't mean that you're a pushover. It just means that you're not going to fight every single battle that comes to you.
And these are lessons that are applicable not just to being an SVP, but also being a screenwriter. Because as a writer myself, the only way to win is to fail a lot.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you have to be comfortable in being able to fail. And I think just being new at something. I'll be honest, I say that, and I think being a mom really taught me that, because I watch my son, for example. He just did basketball camp, and he's 5 years old. So he's just learning how to dribble. And the difference between like the 5 and the 8 year olds is pretty vast, right? Because some of these 8 year olds can ball, and so they're like doing these dribble moves, and like they're and it's and my son's just learning how to like keep it going. And I watch him be so hard on himself, of just being like, oh, I can't do it. But even when he's frustrated, he keeps going back. He never, like, it might be like, do you want to stop? No, I want to try one more time. Please tell the coach I want to keep trying. And that to me is so inspiring, because and I think this happens to a lot of adults, but especially somebody who's like, you're used to kind of having to be the decision maker. You're in this place. It's uncomfortable to be new at something and to fail and to like not be good, or that the first version that you put out is not a masterpiece. Like, but you have to get comfortable in being uncomfortable, and you have to get comfortable with like not everything being a masterpiece, and you need to be able to take notes and take revisions and not be so defensive. And that is something that is being a mom will really teach you, because you watch these little people learn how to do everything, and you have to be able to encourage them to like, no, keep going. So then you have to take your own advice too. So that's one thing that I think motherhood I've been really appreciative of, because it's allowed me to really step outside myself and be uncomfortable with being new at something. Because writing, anything you do that's new is like, you got to be okay with somebody being like, nope, this is trash, you got to start again.
But from the trash comes the treasure. From
Absolutely.
the criticisms, you've gotten so many criticisms on your script over the years. Did that stop you?
Oh my gosh, no. I mean, in the beginning, it hurts, and it's hard. Like anytime you get notes on anything, it's hard. You're an artist, and you're sensitive about your stuff, and it's really as the prophet Eric Badu said. But it really is. You have to get comfortable with taking notes. It's never easy, but you have to be able to step outside yourself, because you'll never move forward, and you're never like, everything could be better, everything. And I think any writer that you meet will tell you that like, you're never going to be 100% happy with the finished product. So you have to also know when to just put it out in the world, but you also have to just be open to the fact that like, there's always going to be something you change, and there's some comfort in that too.
Exactly. And so, but you put it out there, because it can't just live in your head. It can't just stay on your computer. You've got to take the leap. And that's what, you've done so beautifully, right? You take the leap. You take the leap in your professional career. You take the leap in your writing career. And I want to know, what is your next leap? Because we always have a segment called Mompreneurs Manifestation, where I always ask our guests, what's next for you? Or what are you hoping comes next? And how can we help to manifest success in this endeavor for you?
First of all, I love this segment. It's always one of my favorites. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's really just getting my projects out into the world so that other people can share in them, and things that I've worked so hard on and spent a lot of time on will be able to be available for people to enjoy and partake in, or have their critique of. I'm just looking for it to be out in the world more. So I think definitely that, and then manifesting that, just continued opportunities, the right person who could be a real partner for me in terms of, like management and working with me to get those opportunities. I think that's also something that I'm really manifesting. But and just continued, positive feedback on my work. You have to be able to take the negative, but you also need some of the positive. So I think it's been a really nice season with the positive feedback that I've been getting on the project. And so just hoping that, again, it'll just keep getting bigger and more people will get to see it.
Yeah, there are a lot of awards that your screenplay is up for. So we are claiming it. We are sending vibes for the right team, for the right sales, for the right awards to all come your way as you continue to build iOne into the incredible company that it is today. All right, Allie, you got to tell us where we can find you and where everyone can learn more about the incredible work that you do, your incredible fashion sense, everything.
Yes. Well, thank you. You guys can follow me on Instagram, because I am a millennial and we still use Instagram, at Allie McGev. I'm also the same on TikTok, though I watch a lot of TikToks. I don't post a lot of TikToks, but yes, you can follow me on social media at Allie McGev. It's ALLIEMCGEV, been on there since the dawn of time. I think I was like Instagram's like fourth user ever. So you can definitely follow me there. And then my website is AllisonMcGevna.com. And I definitely post a lot there as well in terms of work that I'm proud of that we do here at iOne. So I share a lot of videos and our digital covers and different things there on my social media and on my website, as well as my personal projects as well.
Because the digital covers are amazing. Those weren't a thing until you kind of made them a thing. Am I right?
Yeah, so they had done them on a small scale, but I definitely brought my print knowledge from kind of coming straight from Essence and some other print publications that I had worked at to reimagine them, and super proud of what we've been able to accomplish, who we've been able to have on our covers. Right now, you can check out Chloe Bailey on the cover of Hello Beautiful, and we just had NLE Chapa on the cover of Cassius, and so we. I love the digital covers. I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud of the team. And we have some really exciting ones coming down the pike. And I just, to be able to bring that creativity and work with the team and train them up, and it has really been amazing.
Well, it is a pleasure, and we are so grateful. Thank you for all that you do in so many ways as a mom, as a mompreneur, and here at iOne.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm such a fan of the podcast, so I'm so excited to be here and, to be officially called a mompreneur.
You are. It's very exciting. I mean, what you're doing is incredible, and it'll be amazing to see, because when we look at some of the coolest moms, Toni Morrison was writing The Bluest Eye at 4 o'clock in the morning while her children slept, before she went to her job. So many people were doing what you did before, and you are an inspiration for people listening to go and make their creative nights happen. Whether or not you are partnered up or whether you have to find some support, you need to take time, block it out to do your business work and your personal work that can become your business work. So thank you for all your nuggets of wisdom, and thank you to everyone for listening and watching. Just a reminder, a brand new episode of Mompreneurs goes live each Monday on Urban One Podcast Network, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Visit urbanonepodcast.com to learn more. That's urban1podcast.com. Mompreneurs is brought to you by the Urban One Podcast Network and MadameNoire. Created, produced, and hosted by me, Nancy Wren. Executive produced by Sarita Wesley, Allison McGevna, and Tanya Hoffler-Moore. Produced and edited by Jiminique Miller.